Arsenal fans, if you was like me praying for a miracle that somehow Gabriel would be back involved for the Tottenham game, unfortunately, it looks like you're not going to get it. We're seeing reports on social media. Look, if you're an Arsenal fan right now, avoid social media because there are blows being dealt in every direction. The first one I read, David Ornstein, Arsenal continuing to assess Gabriel amid concerns the 27-year-old could miss 1 to 2 months through injury sustained on international duty. The initial indication suggests that Arsenal centre-back is set for a spell out, but tests are ongoing. So that is bad enough in its own right. Because most of us are thinking, right, maybe, or even if he does miss the Tottenham game, right, you're obviously hoping to limit the amount of time that Gabriel is on the sidelines. But 1 to 2 months is a crazy amount of time. I'm actually going to run through some of the fixtures that Gabriel could be missing, okay? But I read that one, and then straight after I saw this message from Fabrizio Romano. The Germany manager said, Kai Havertz had minor relapse on his injury, but overall he's doing well. He is expected to return towards the end of the year. And I'm just thinking, what is happening? How are we so unlucky this season? And I mean, we've spoken before about how the fact, like, if these injuries continue, if we keep being this unlucky, like, it has to affect us. Now, look, I'm not being negative because I look at that Arsenal team, I look at that Arsenal bench, and I still think we're strong enough. I still think the depth that Arsenal have will be enough to overcome this next period of time, even if it is 2 months. But you look at some of those fixtures and you think, oh, do you know what? There's some tough games in there. Like, we know when we come back this weekend, which I can't wait for, by the way, international break has been a killer. We got Tottenham, Bayern, and then Chelsea. So those are difficult fixtures. And then you've got games like Brentford. Then after that, you've got Villa. We have to play them twice without Gabriel. You've got Liverpool. Then you've got Champions League. You've got cup games. So Gabriel, 2 months of a player's season is a massive amount of football to miss. All I hope is that if Gabriel is out, look, the reports suggest 1 to 2 months. Obviously, in a perfect world, 1 month. I'm praying for 1 month, but we know it rarely happens. Like, I can't think of too many examples where you get given a time period and it's towards the lower end. I think Odegaard had an injury where he got back quite quickly. I think Kai Havertz has previously. But again, the relapse of this injury from Kai Havertz proves that you can't never count on that. Like, these players for Arsenal were struggling this season, and I actually liked a point that a rival made. It was a Man City fan in my comments section, and he made a very decent point. He was like, look, I've watched Arsenal this season, and the injuries that Arsenal are getting doesn't surprise me, because I watched Arsenal against Burnley. We all remember it because we spoke about it. In the 94th minute, Arsenal, there was a turnover of play. Burnley are on the break, and on the 94th minute, you had every single player sprinting. We know this is the demands for Arsenal. We all enjoy the fact that these players work so hard for the team. We have, like I said, strikers in the 94th, 95th minute busting a gut to get back because we want to keep a clean sheet. These Arsenal players, this Arsenal manager, hate conceding. But when you're playing with that intensity for that long, unfortunately, you will get injuries. And that guy made a good point, and it made me think, do you know what? Maybe this high intensity that Arsenal are constantly defending with will breed this type of act. Like, you're going to get injuries. Like, I don't know how I feel about that. Obviously, it's frustrating getting the injuries, but at the same time, I enjoy the way that Arsenal play in terms of that defensive commitment that most of these players have. So I wouldn't swap that. Again, I do still think we've been slightly unlucky with these injuries. I think in a perfect world, it would be obviously slightly less, but when you play with that high intensity, like, you're going to get more injuries. That is just a circumstance of the environment that Arsenal are playing in. There was some other news as well that, I don't know, it's a bit of a talking point. Michael Oliver hasn't refereed an Arsenal game for 10 months after the blunder he made against Wolves, right? And look, I'm not sitting here digging out Michael Oliver, but it's an interesting game to put him back in charge of Arsenal. Like, it's very curious. Like, he hasn't managed us for 10 months, and you're throwing him in for the North London derby. Arsenal versus Tottenham, one of the very biggest fixtures of Arsenal's calendar. Like, if you're in the bad books with Arsenal, you're throwing him in against Tottenham. I just thought that was like, we've had some fixtures this season where you thought, okay, maybe you could slip him in. Who have we played? Burnley. Maybe you can throw him in. Burnley, Fulham, West Ham, even Brighton. Give him a cup game. But no, they choose the North London derby. Like, I just thought, it's kind of crazy, right? Because initially, Arsenal fans will have a bit of a hate for Michael Oliver, thinking, oh, look, he's against us. He doesn't like Arsenal. And maybe that does work against us, but I actually think there could be a world in where this decision actually helps Arsenal. Because, look, he's going to know that he will be under a microscope, right? Not only by Arsenal fans, but the media, the PGMOL. Everyone's going to be watching his performances and judging him. So will that make him more reluctant to pull up Arsenal in certain circumstances? Say if Tottenham are on the break and an Arsenal player pulls one of their players back, an offence that would usually be a yellow card, would that play in Michael Oliver's mind? Will he be thinking, do you know what, that's probably a yellow card, but if I get it wrong and watch it back and maybe it's not quite a yellow card, will I then be apprehended again? Will I get in trouble? So there is a weird and wacky world where Michael Oliver being back for this game could benefit Arsenal. Look, Arsenal need some luck because at the minute we're finding it very difficult, and that is proven by this kind of news where you hear Gabriel, although most of us were hoping, look, this might just be a bit of a precautionary. Hopefully, look, I know he come off the pitch, he looked a bit injured, but hopefully he's back for Tottenham. If not, let's get him back for Bayern, get him back for Chelsea. Now we're here in 1 to 2 months. That is a massive portion of football that Gabriel could miss. But like I've said previously, this gives us a chance to use that squad depth, to look at players like Nketiah. I think most people are in agreement that Nketiah now deserves a chance to show what he can do for Arsenal. Again, this is a guy who's actually had some injury problems since he's come in for Arsenal. He hasn't played as many games as probably he would like, Mikel Arteta would like. So this is an opportunity where you get to see what he's made of. Much like how we saw with Mosquera when Saliba come out. This is your chance to see what Nketiah can offer in that centre-back position. Again, he will be used in left-back as well. But if there's ever a chance to show that you are capable, and this will lessen the minutes on players like Gabriel. Like, now we know Mosquera's good enough to relieve Saliba if he's being overworked. So if Saliba's ever overworked, you can bring him off comfortably at 50, 60, 70 minutes and play Mosquera and understand there's not going to be too much of a drop-off in terms of performance. You can feel confident. I can feel confident now. If Saliba comes off and Mosquera comes on, I'm calm. Even if we're playing a strong team, Bayern Munich, for example, if in 60, 70 minutes we're winning the game by 1 or 2 goals and Saliba comes off, Mosquera comes on, is it ideal? No, but I feel confident in the ability that Mosquera has because I've seen him play a run of games and I understand his qualities. At the same point, if we're playing Bayern and Gabriel come off for 60, 70 minutes and we had to play Nketiah, right now I would feel slightly more nervous than I would if it was a Mosquera because we haven't seen what Nketiah can do. Again, what has he made? 1 or 2 appearances. He's had very limited game time. So when he comes in for Gabriel, if he does get a run of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games, we will see what he can do. And then again, that will lessen the load on Gabriel moving forward. Once we understand, right, this guy is real, he's legit. So when Gabriel is tired, when he's being overworked, let's rest Gabriel. Because that is what we're going to have to do. That is why we've got this big squad. We don't have this deep squad for no reason. Like, it's just unfortunate at the minute that we're kind of... Saka, for example, like he couldn't have been played alongside Madueke so they can kind of manage their minutes. Central midfield, we have a few options, but then Norgard was out, so you're having to play Zubimendi, Declan Rice, Odegaard's out, so Eze's being played more centrally. So again, there's just so many injuries. Martinelli's missing, so you can't have that rotation on the left-hand side. When we have all these guys, if we have all these guys back, you should be able to rotate them and manage everyone's load, and then that will minimise these injuries that we're currently seeing at Arsenal. Let me know your thoughts on everything you've heard in this video. Thanks so much to everyone for watching and listening. Before you go, if you could do me a quick favour, just hit like and subscribe, and I'll speak to you all in tomorrow's video. Gooners, have a good day.